Hi guys, Rhi here from mummyof4.com. Welcome back to another episode of Real Talk with Rhi, my brand new podcast. So today I want to share some books that have absolutely changed my life, changed the way I think about things, the way I live my days, and how I make my life easier as a mum and also in a work situation. I would say I've read all of these books, but that would be a slight lie. I have listened to all of these books on Audible. If you do not yet have Audible, it has been an absolute game changer because you can listen to all those books you've been meaning to read while you are doing other things. I mainly started looking for these books when I started doing what I'm doing now as a job. So that's blogging, vlogging, YouTube. I knew I wanted it to be my actual job, not just a hobby, so that I could work from home and fit my job around my children. I was looking for books that would help me be better in business, more organised, more productive, that kind of thing. I was listening to these books in the car when I was doing a reasonably lengthy school run commute 2, sometimes 3 times a day. It turned out that all of these books that I was looking for to help me with business and organisation all come back to one thing, and that is mindset. You hear the word self-development, it gets a bit of a bad rep. The lessons in these self-development books, which is what they all are really, can be applied to every aspect of your life. I have listened to so many of these books. So whatever you're struggling with, whether it's just staying on top of mum life, work, friendships, the house, everything, all of the lessons I'm going to share with you today from these books will help you. So without further ado, let's dive into the first one. The first book I'm going to discuss you may be familiar with. It is a bestseller in the self-help section, and that is Atomic Habits by James Clear. This book absolutely changes the way you think about what you do day to day. Habits are the building blocks of our lives. Whether we're talking about good habits or bad habits, they have a significant impact on our lives both day to day and when it comes to long-term outcomes. The book talks about making small incremental changes to work towards what you want in the long run, and how these tiny incremental changes can have a massive compounding effect over time. So I think so many of us set goals or intentions about wanting to have a tidier house. We might have health and fitness goals. And so often these New Year's resolutions that we make in January and we're so enthusiastic about just never manage to come to fruition. And according to this book, it is our habits and our systems that can be to blame when we don't achieve our goals. This makes so much sense because it's these tiny things we do or do not do every single day that make a massive difference. He talks about the 4 laws of behaviour change, the 4 elements being cue, craving, response, and reward. For example, if we take a bad habit that I've definitely been guilty of over time, I'm sure lots of us have actually, if my DMs are anything to go by. Cue would be feeling a bit stressed. Craving, I want some chocolate because I feel that will make me feel better. Response, I go and get chocolate. Reward, I feel better because I'm eating chocolate. Has this cured the actual stress, or is this just fueling my chocolate addiction? Spoiler alert, it's B. It doesn't actually help, although it does feel like it helps in the short term. This habit that I have formed, and so many of us have formed, is that when I'm stressed, I want to eat chocolate because it makes me feel better. And I associate the chocolate with curing the stress. I even had a habit where I was associating, and I still do this to some degree, a habit where I used to associate being tired and hungry. I went through a phase when, I can't remember which one of my babies was little, by eating a Kit Kat while I was feeding them in the middle of the night. And I got into this habit that whenever they woke up in the night, I wanted a Kit Kat. And I was aware that was a bit unnecessary. And I did put a stop to that. But even now, I have to ask myself when I'm tired in the evening, Am I mindlessly snacking because I'm actually hungry or because I'm tired? And more often than not, it's just a bad habit that I have formed. So this book is absolutely fascinating. I cannot recommend it highly enough. Listen to it on Audible. I have got a code if you go to mummyof4.com. That's the word 4, not the number. mummyof4.com/audible. You can grab one free download from Audible. It's like a free trial, but even if you decide to cancel and you don't have to pay anything at all, then you do get to keep that one audiobook. Listen to the rest of this podcast and decide which one might be for you, but grab one of these audiobooks today and listen to them in their entirety as you're going about your day. You will not regret it. So Atomic Habits really teaches us how to identify our bad habits, identify the triggers, and to remove bad habits, and then it helps us create new positive habits to work towards the goals that we want to achieve. For example, one of the habits I implement, and you'll know this if you've been following my YouTube channel or my Instagram for a while, is laundry every day. Laundry every day is a habit because I got so overwhelmed at being stuck under a mountain of laundry all the time and just so fed up of being overwhelmed by it. That habit of putting on laundry every day, even if it's Christmas Day, even if I am ill, I will still get a load of laundry on because I know it keeps it going and it keeps the overwhelm away. So I'm going to move on to the next book now, but do let me know if you're watching on YouTube. You can comment below, but I'm still a little bit new to this podcast stuff. I guess you could leave it in a review, or you could just DM me over on Instagram. I'm mummyof4uk. It's all in the show notes, or drop me a little email. The email details will be below as well. But if you want me to go into depth about any one of these books, an entire podcast episode, then I can absolutely do that. But for now, we're just going to kind of skim through, give you the synopsis of each book and a couple of little takeaways and why I believe it's changed my life and it can change yours too. Okay, so the next book, the main thing I've taken away from this book, and the whole book is absolutely worth listening to or reading. Obviously you can download it or you can grab it from Amazon. It's definitely worth listening to every single word of it because it is just such fantastic wisdom. You will feel uplifted and empowered once you have read this book or listened to this book. But if you take away one thing from this book, it's the title. And I say this to my husband, I say it to my children, I probably say it every day. So thank you, Marie Forleo. It's everything is figure-outable. It's a mantra that Marie got from her mum, Marie Forleo. If you're not familiar with her, she is an entrepreneur. She calls herself a multi-passionate entrepreneur, and her stories throughout the book, it's fantastic. She didn't know what she wanted to do with her life, and then she ended up becoming a self-help coach before that was even really a thing. I know now in this day and age, a lot of people do that. But back when she started doing it, it wasn't as well known. But she also went off to be a dancer with little or no basic training. And she's just done amazing things with her life. Following this mantra, everything is figure-outable. And I say it to myself every day when I'm stuck, when I can't figure out things like this podcast, for example. I have had nightmares. If you listen to my last podcast, I had nightmares with the audio and the synchronization of it and trying to work out all the back end of how I get it from me recording it to off into cyberspace and into all the places. It's blown my tiny little mind, if I'm honest. By employing this mantra, everything is figure-outable, it makes me stop, take a breath, and just think, no, I can do this. I just need to figure out how. And when the children are melting down about something, it's a pause. We go, stop. Everything is figure-outable. How can we figure this out? What is the problem? How can we figure it out? She talks in the book that fear is natural and shouldn't hold us back. And we just keep coming back to this mantra. It grounds us and it makes us think, right, there is a way through this. There is a way that we can get past whatever this roadblock is. We can break it down and figure it out. She talks about how thoughts and beliefs shape our reality. So many of these books, actually. I need to add up how many I've actually read, just probably by going through my Audible list, actually. And I keep saying read. Read a book, listen to a book. It still counts if you listen to it, right? It still counts. You're still digesting that information. Anyway, how many books I have read, in inverted commas? They all seem to come back to this mindset, and so many of them come back to these subconscious limiting beliefs that we all have. Things like, for example, one of mine was a message that I had from childhood because there was, let's call this person a significant adult in my life. I think that's vague enough. A significant adult in my life that started multiple businesses, never saw any of them through. When I started doing what I am now doing for a living, I had to work past this subconscious limiting belief that nobody could ever start and make a success of a small business. Now, I'm aware when I say that out loud that it's ridiculous because people start and make successes of businesses every day. It's something that happens to people across the world every day. There are many, many businesses thriving and making money. However, because this belief was stuck in my subconscious, where these naughty little beliefs hang out and just drive the bus basically without us knowing, they're guiding us without us knowing. When they're hanging out there in your subconscious, then you don't know that you are reacting to these subconscious limiting beliefs because they're in your subconscious. When you call it out into your conscious mind and you go, oh, hang on, that's ridiculous, because in the light of day, often these beliefs that we have from childhood don't actually make sense when we say them out loud, but they hold us back until we call them out into the light. This book really emphasizes the power of how your thoughts and beliefs shape your reality. By becoming aware of what we believe, we can reframe our beliefs into something that will help and not hinder us. Marie talks about how persistence is key. She talks about resilience and how we can build that up, and really talks about how we can embrace a growth mindset. Whatever you are doing with your life, whether you are employed, whether you are self-employed, whether you are a stay-at-home mum, these limiting beliefs affect us everywhere. They really, really do. And the mantra, everything is figure-outable, literally saves me every day. I say it to myself or out loud to someone in my life every single day. This book is a highly recommended one from me. Please make sure you check it out. All of the links to the books will be in the show notes, which if you're on Apple Podcasts, you can just scroll all the way down to the bottom. Or there is a blog post to go with this podcast, which I always pop onto my blog, mummyof4.com, and it'll be in the description if you're watching over on YouTube. So next book I want to chat about is The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. Now, The Miracle Morning talks about how to transform your life by getting up an hour earlier and doing all the work on yourself and on improving your life that you normally do not have time for. Many years ago, I was not a morning person. And in fact, when I started doing all of the work that I do now, I was very much a work in the evening after the children had gone to bed kind of person. And then lockdown happened and we had to homeschool our children. And I've got to say, by the end of the day, my brain power was like my iPhone battery, which was basically non-existent. This book points out how when we wake up, that's when our full potential is there. Your phone's been charging all night, and by your phone, also you've been charging all night, you've got full battery. And that's the time you need to be doing your development work, you work on yourself, you work on your goals. The book talks about SAVERS, which is an acronym. Now, if you've watched some of my YouTube videos about waking up early in the morning, I've got quite a few morning routine videos, although I am due to do another one because my morning routine has changed quite a lot recently. As the children have got a little bit older, we've adjusted a number of things. A lot of the stuff that I do in the mornings has been based on, although it's not exactly replicated from this book, but I've taken a lot from it. So the acronym SAVERS, which stands for, let me get this straight, silence, meditation. No, I've got to say that's something I struggle with. So that's probably not something I do. Affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing. So I don't always do all of this, but there are certain elements I definitely do every morning. Silence and meditation. This is the one I struggle with most, and I probably rarely, if not never, do. My brain is just racing a million miles an hour, and I tend to get on to the other stuff first. Silence is a struggle for me. Even doing yoga without also listening to an audiobook is a struggle for me because my brain is just worrying constantly. Anyway, back to what I was saying. Affirmations. So this can be writing out your goals. This can be listening to affirmations. There are so many excellent affirmations. I've got a few. I will link them in that blog post of audiobooks I've had from Audible with affirmations. You can get positive affirmations playlists on Apple Music, Spotify, that kind of thing. You can listen to them on YouTube. I like to put these on just while I'm cleaning my teeth and doing my skincare and things in the morning because multitasking. And then visualization. He talks about visualization and visualizing how you want your life to be. I combine this in with the scribing, which is the journaling, by writing out my 10 big life goals and trying to really visualize those as I write them out. And he talks about visualizing things as if they've already happened. He talks about the importance of exercise. And I've got to say, if I exercise in the morning, it changes the game for me for the rest of the day. It really, really does. Exercising in the morning, I feel like it boosts my energy levels. It also helps me eat the frog, which is something we're going to come back to. If you don't know what I'm talking about, keep listening and that will all be explained. But yeah, it helps me eat the frog. I feel like that's over and done with. I feel like that's such a massive tick off my list if I exercise first thing in the morning. If I procrastinate exercising till later in the day, so often it will just never happen. And that's such a shame because then I feel like a failure. I know that's ridiculous, but I feel like, oh, I just wish I'd got that done. Getting the exercise done first thing in the morning, it really helps. He talks about the importance of reading. Again, do you know what I tend to do? Rather than actually sit and read, I will generally listen to my audiobook, which will be a self-development book or podcast while I am exercising. And that just saves me a little bit of time. The book talks about mindset, much like the other books also talk about cultivating this positive mindset, but they're all coming at it from slightly different angles. And it's not a case of if you've listened to one of these books, you've listened to all of them. They've all got such different points to share and such important wisdom. So ultimately, this book is encouraging you to take ownership of your morning to absolutely rock the rest of your day. If you are not convinced, give the book a read, give it a listen, and then just implement it. Give it a try it for a few weeks and just let me know how you get on. Tag me in stories or something over on Instagram if you have given this a go or you're in the process of giving this a go, and let me know how you get on. The next book I want to talk about really did blow my mind because, again, there was another, let's call this person significant adult of influence in my childhood that taught me that procrastination was the way to go, basically. I have struggled so much with procrastination, especially as a young adult. It is not something that I especially struggle with anymore because I absolutely fight against it. And leaving things to the last minute almost makes me slightly anxious now because procrastination has caused me so many problems growing up and as a young adult. Leaving things unfinished, never quite managing to complete anything. That was my story, my limiting belief as a young adult, that I could never finish anything, see anything through. And this book, Finish, Give Yourself the Gift of Done. So this book's by John Acuff. This one focuses on overcoming perfectionism in the interest of getting things finished. Now, obviously, if you've listened to my other podcasts, I'm not totally over my procrastination issues, although they're a lot better than they were. I talked about in the first episode how my name of my YouTube channel, Mummy of Four, is not a perfect name, but it was done is better than best. And I was very proud of myself for getting started. And if I'd never got started, I wouldn't be here today. This wouldn't be my job. Now, by contrast with my planner, I did fall into a bit of a procrastination trap with that. It wasn't perfect. I was worried that it wasn't good enough. And actually, it took me a while to just get it finished. But going back to the concepts in this book really helped me get it done and out there into the world in the end, which I'm really glad about because I've had so many lovely messages and comments and things from people that have bought not just the Organised Life Planner, Shameless self-promotion here, by the way. I have an organised life planner if you're interested. If you need to organise your life, you need a planner. I have both a digital and a printed version. I've also got a Disney version for planning trips. Okay, that's the end of mini plug for my own products. I'll put all the details below. Anyway, this book really helped me get this finished and out into the world, and seeing people actually use the planners in real life and them helping people has been amazing. The principles in the book, in summary, are as follows. Perfectionism, it's actually just procrastination dressed up as perfectionism, and done is better than best. He wants us to set realistic goals we can actually achieve because, as he points out in the book, if there is a goal that we feel that is so out of reach, we're never going to get there, then we don't even really try. Our brains, I'm never going to get there, so why bother trying? And that can be really damaging to actually getting things done. So for example, if you've got a room in your house that is floor to ceiling with stuff, and you think, I've got to get that whole room cleared, you're never going to get it finished, so you don't even end up starting. However, if you want to clear out a drawer or a shelf or a section of floor or one box, that's achievable, we're more likely to do it. He focuses on important tasks over meaningless tasks and getting the right things done, and there are lots of strategies in the book to help us identify these things. He encourages us to learn from our failures, develop habits of consistency, and use positive motivation to shift our focus and get things done and finished. So if you really struggle with procrastination, or if something isn't perfect, you can't do it at all, this is the book for you. The next book that just has changed my life, in that it is the best pick-me-up, the best virtual kick up the backside in a most positive, lovely way that you could ever have. And this is Shonda Rhimes' The Year of Yes. How to dance it out, stand in the sun and be your own person. Now, if there's ever a book on Audible that is read by the author, then I'm always all for that. I love a book read by the author because it's not only in their words, but it's in their voice. And this is a fantastic example of that. Now, I encourage you, if you fancy this book, The Year of Yes, do not buy it to read, get it to listen to, because Shonda Rhimes is amazing. If you don't know who Shonda Rhimes is, she wrote my favourite TV show of all time, Grey's Anatomy, my probably second favourite TV show of all time, Scandal. She's involved in Bridgerton, which I also love. In fact, whatever Shonda touches, I adore. I absolutely adore it. She's done a number of other amazing TV shows too that I've really enjoyed. One of my favourites, got to be Grey's Anatomy. I started watching that when my eldest was newborn, and it was like something I'd have on during night feeds and things. Listening to this book, it sounds like it's being read by Miranda Bailey. If you're a Grey's fan, you'll know who that is. Now, it turns out Shonda doesn't sound like Miranda Bailey, but probably that Miranda Bailey sounds like Shonda because Shonda's the writer. So in the beginning of the book, Shonda, the writer of Grey's and indeed the book, shares that she is making a family dinner and her sisters are there, and they ask her to do something. I can't remember what, but they ask her to do something and she says no because she's too busy, because she's writing TV shows and she's got children and she's just busy. And her sister's response is something along the lines of, I knew you were going to say no anyway. You always say no to everything. And this really hits home with her. She gets into a bit of a funk about it. And then she realizes she's got to do something because, yeah, she's constantly saying no to things. And she decides to say yes to everything, even things that scare her, especially things that scare her, for an entire year. And this book takes you through her entire year and the massive transformations she goes through just by employing this saying yes to everything, including at one stage she even says yes to saying no to get out of a situation she doesn't want to be in. I don't want to spoil it too much for you, but I will go through some of my key takeaways. But really, I love this book so much. It is one of my favourite, most uplifting books ever. Just the lessons in it, it's just mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. I love it. It talks so much about facing your fears, embracing new experiences, prioritizing self-care, which as mums, I think can be very difficult to do. That's a very difficult lesson to learn, but is really important. About being authentic, about setting boundaries. Setting boundaries is something I could talk about a lot. And in fact, I am planning to do an upcoming podcast episode dedicated to setting boundaries, because I think this, as mums, is something we can really struggle with. Shonda talks a lot in the book about gratitude and being present. It is funny, it is witty, it will make you laugh, it will make you cry, but more than anything, it will uplift you and just make you feel so much better. So that's The Year of Yes by Shonda Rhimes. So far, we've covered Atomic Habits by James Clear, Everything is Figureoutable by Marie Forleo, The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod, Finish, Give Yourself the Gift of Done by John Acuff, Shonda Rhimes, The Year of Yes. How to Dance It Out, Stand in the Sun and Be Your Own Person. I was only going to talk about 5 books in this episode, but I realised I had to include this one because I say it so much and I apply it so much, and that is the book Eat the Frog by Brian Tracy. This entire book is based on a quote by Mark Twain, who said, "If you have to eat a live frog, do it first thing in the morning, and that's the worst thing that's going to happen to you that day. And if you have to eat 2 frogs, eat the nastiest, slimiest one first." In this book, Brian Tracy shows us how we can apply this in our day-to-day lives. Much like John Acuff, Brian Tracy talks about how procrastination is the enemy of productivity. He encourages us to set clear goals, prioritise ruthlessly, focus on the high-value activities that are really going to make a difference to our lives, rather than all the little faffy, busy for the sake of busy jobs. He wants us to plan and organise, manage our time efficiently, develop discipline and self-control, and learn to say no to the things that do not serve us. In the book, he goes into exactly how we can do this. But the biggest overarching theme is to take that most important task, and he helps you through the book to define what that is, to take that most important task and get it over and done with first thing in the morning, or as early in the day as possible. So for me, exercising is an eat the frog thing. It's something I can so easily put off until it's not done. In my work day, I tend to try and do the most important things for my job first that have to get done, and then the kind of faffier bits and pieces kind of things later in the day. For example, if you open your email or your social media first thing in the day, you're immediately on someone else's agenda. Someone else is asking you what you need to do, putting demands on you, and setting your mood really. Whereas I leave those responding to things, activities till later in the day and try and get the things done that have to be done. So for me, my job, that's creating content. It's like recording this podcast. I would, if I can help it at all, avoid leaving filming something like this podcast till the end of the day. I try and do it early in the day, and I know I'm fresh as I'm going to get anyway as a mum. My brain is as fresh as it ever gets, and I know it is done, and then I can relax a bit once those big meaty tasks are done. If you think of day-to-day terms, if it's a job you're dreading, like cleaning the kitchen, something horrible, cleaning the oven, just a job that's been like hanging over you, eat that frog, get it done, and I cannot tell you how good it is going to feel when you have done that, when you have eaten that frog. If you are going to read this book, get it on Audible. It's Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. Sorry, Eat the Frog, not that frog, the frog. Whichever way you want to frame it, but the book is The Frog. So Eat the Frog by Brian Tracy. If you want to download it and listen to it and take away the lessons, please do. Or if that's a book you want me to elaborate on more in a future podcast. But if you just take away a few things from this podcast, it can be the titles. Everything is figureoutable. You come into a problem, everything's figureoutable. And I want you to decide what's going to be the frog in your life and tag me over on Instagram stories if you were doing a job that is eating the frog. If you are eating a frog, hopefully like a metaphorical frog, please don't tag me in pictures of eating actual frogs. No frogs need to be harmed during the making of this exercise. So if you were eating a metaphorical frog, let's be clear about this, no actual frogs. If you are cleaning your kitchen, doing your exercise, whatever it is, and getting it done. Stuff you've been procrastinating forever and you're finally doing it because you're eating the frog. Go and tag me over on Instagram. I love to see empowering stories like that, so I can share them on my stories of people just getting things done. And let's empower one another to eat as many frogs as possible. Metaphorically, of course, only metaphorically. I would love to know, if you're on YouTube, you can just comment below. But if you're listening on your favorite podcasting thing, I wish there was like a comment section. There's no comment section on podcasts, so that you could leave me a review with your answer, like I said earlier, I think, or you can DM me or tag me over on Instagram. But let me know if you've listened to any of these books, if you're going to be downloading any of them. They are all linked along with that link for a free trial with Audible, where you get one free book. So you could listen to one of these books completely for free, and you get to keep it even if you cancel before any payment is taken. Let me know which book you have read or are going to read or are going to listen to. I have got a lot more books than this. If you want another podcast with more life-changing books summarised like this, or if you want me to go into more detail on one specific book that has changed my life, I would love to hear that. I just want to take a second to say thank you so much for all your support with the podcast so far. It was something that I was disproportionately nervous about doing, considering I make YouTube videos for a living. You would have thought making a leap to putting something on a podcast wouldn't be that big a deal. I've had to use the everything is figure outable far more than you'd realise to figure out all the techie side of it. And yeah, limiting beliefs have played a massive part. Oh, no one's going to like it. It won't do well. What's the point? You're wasting your time. You should be doing all of this. Constant negative chatter has been going on in my head. So having lovely messages from you guys, downloading it, sharing it, leaving reviews has really meant more to me than I am able to convey. So I just want to say a really heartfelt thank you. I will be putting stickers and stories over on my Instagram if you've got specific topics you want me to share. If you've got specific topics you want me to talk about on the podcast, then please leave them over there, or email me rhi@mummyof4.com. I'm also thinking about doing podcasts. I don't know about your thoughts on this, answering very specific questions, because I quite often get very specific questions in my DMs, and I feel like I could talk in depth about them. It's far more than I could ever answer in a DM. And I thought maybe this podcast would be a good medium to chat about those kind of things. I've really enjoyed the more chatty element of this, and I'm really grateful to all of you that have messaged to say that you've enjoyed it too. Don't forget to tag me over on stories when you are listening, wherever you're listening. I love to see what you're doing, wherever you're tuning in from on all your different podcast platforms, and of course over on YouTube, my kind of OG platform. So thanks so much again for listening to another episode of Real Talk with Rhi. Bye. Oh, just touch this lens. Don't do that, Rhi.